Hey YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Sean Austin here from Sean's Rabbit Train Aquaponic Produce, and we're back with another rabbit farming video for you guys. So I hope you guys have been following our little series here for the newbies. Hope you're finding it useful. If you do, share it with someone else. If it's your first time viewing, we release videos every Monday. Most of them are on rabbit farming. If that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe right now. And make sure you turn on your notifications so you'll know whenever we upload new content. So guys, we're continuing in our little series, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how you care for your does during pregnancy. So stay tuned and we'll be back with more right after the intro. Okay guys, we're back, and well, as you may have noticed, I'm not in my usual spot, you know, for the beginning of our videos, but the guys are doing some power washing out front there, and it's making a lot of noise. So I know that these devices are very sensitive. They'll record more noise than my voice, so I have to keep moving around to avoid them and make this as quiet as possible. So yeah, today we're talking a bit about seeing about your does during pregnancy. See, we have some bucks behind me here. Hey guys, right, they're happy. Let's go over to some does here. So we have this section here of does. Some of them have kindled, some are due to kindle, and some are, well, pregnant but not close to kindling as yet. So in our last vid, we spoke a lot about preparing for the upcoming litters. So let's say you have that done, but before the litter arrives, you also have to prepare the doe for the litter that she's going to kindle. One of the main things you need to really look at with the doe is their health, and that is directly tied to their nutrition. So this is the time when you want to give some focus on the quality and quantity of feed that they receive. Okay, so it is our policy to generally feed all our rabbits 4 ounces of feed per day. Someone asked me recently if we measure the amount of feed that we're feeding them each day, and the answer to that is no, because that would be really time consuming. So I touched on this before, but let me touch on it again just for clarification. What we did years ago is that we used a scale, obviously, to weigh out 4 ounces of feed, and then we made this little container. This is what we use to feed, right? This is just a piece of 1.5 inch PVC pipe with a 1.5 inch PVC end cap at the end. Now we cut some slits at the bottom of the end cap using an angle grinder, just to allow some of the feed dust to escape. So if I shake this, because this has feed in it, if I shake a bit, you can actually see the feed dust falling out there. So this helps to keep some of the dust out of the feed that we're giving to them. Now you're going to see a lot of dust in this particular scoop, because this is from the very bottom of the barrel that I just scooped out before we refill the barrel. So there's a lot of dust settled at the bottom. Okay, so what we did, I stuck these two together, and then I put the 4 ounces of feed into this here, and then I cut the top to the level of the feed. So this is more or less an easy way to average 4 ounces with each feeding. Right? It's not going to be precise to the ounce or half ounce, but it's close enough, so it saves you a lot of time and labor, and you know that generally all of your rabbits are receiving the same amount of feed. Now back to the feeding of your does. So all our rabbits daily are receiving 4 ounces of feed. All our rabbits, or does, or bucks, or fryers, 4 ounces of feed. Even weaners, when we separate them, 4 ounces of feed each. At the very beginning, they may not consume the entire 4 ounces. So on the second day of feeding, you'll hold back a bit. That's with the weaners. But by the end of the week, they're going to be consuming that entire 4 ounces of feed because they've gotten used to it. So standard across the board, all of them are receiving 4 ounces of feed. Now, when it comes to our does, because we're preparing our does to have a litter. So let's say you've bred your does. Again, remember, record keeping is important. You've bred your does, and at day 14 after breeding, you palpate your does. If you're new to the channel and you don't know how to palpate, or you don't know what palpating is basically a way to confirm whether or not the doe is actually pregnant. Okay, we have an entire video done on palpation. I'll try and leave the link to that in the description below. If you haven't seen that one, then you should definitely go check that out. So you palpate and you determine which does are pregnant and those that are not. Now, you're not always going to get 100% conception, okay? Which is why palpation is important, because you don't want to just sit for an entire month waiting for litters that never arrive. I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it. Your biggest expense, apart from your own labor in rabbit farming, is feed. Your feed cost is always going to be a bit high, and feed prices are at the highest they've ever been. So it's a resource that you want to conserve and use wisely. Okay, save on feed as much as you can wherever you can. So you're feeding 4 ounces of feed. After you palpate at 14 days and you confirm that they're pregnant, we then begin to give them 6 ounces of feed per day. Now it's simple, because the little container we have there is 4 ounces. Half of that is 2. So we'll give them a scoop and a half to average 6 ounces. And this is why I say palpating is important, because if you simply assume that all of your does are pregnant and you start increasing their feed, you would have increased feed for all of your does, including the ones that are not pregnant, which would have been a waste of feed and may, in some cases, lead to overweight does. Now, you don't want your does to be overweight, because overweight does give a lot of problems to breed and a lot of problems to actually conceive. So you don't want overweight does, which is why you need to control your feed. I see a lot of people free feeding. The only time I recommend free feeding is when your does are nursing. When they're nursing young, because that is the time they need to produce a lot of milk, and that is the highest stress point on their body. So their nutrition has to be right up. So at that point, if you want to free feed, fine. But beyond that, it's a bit risky, because you run the risk of having overweight does. That is something I'll do a separate video on, but just remember, you don't want your does to be overweight. You've confirmed pregnancy, you've increased their feed to 6 ounces. The ones that gave a negative palpate, the ones that are not pregnant, you're going to continue to feed them 4 ounces of feed, and you're going to immediately rebreed them. So effectively, you've saved yourself 2 weeks of waiting for a litter that won't arrive, and an additional 2 weeks of an extra 2 ounces of feed per doe, right? Which would have been a waste of feed. So it's very important that you be able to palpate and do so effectively. Now, when our does kindle. We then increase their feed to 8 ounces per day. Like I said, at this stage, some people choose to free feed. We don't ever free feed. We like to control our feeding. One of the main reasons why I don't like free feeding is because it doesn't give you a proper visual gauge on how much feed your doe is actually consuming, or if she's consuming feed at all. See, what I have noticed is that if you're feeding a specific amount of feed, and in most cases the rabbits get used to that volume of feed, so they consume all of it by the time they're next feeding. But if you come tomorrow to feed and you notice there's still feed in their pan, you know that they're not eating, and that's a cause for concern. You need to check to see whether their water is stuck, if they don't have water, because if they don't have water they won't eat. You know, you need to look at them to see if they're constipated, look at their droppings to see if they're passing droppings, what are the condition of those droppings, things like that. That's one of the reasons why I particularly don't like free feeding. So we give a controlled amount, 4 ounces at the beginning, 6 ounces when we confirm pregnancy, and 8 ounces when nursing. Now, we spoke about feeding, and I only spoke about the use of concentrate feed, right? But feed doesn't only involve concentrate. You could incorporate grasses and hay and straw and things like that into their diet, and it's really important to do that. So if you have enough forage that you can cut, you can feed them as much forage as you want, ad libitum. Okay, that is one of the times I recommend free feeding. That's when you're feeding forages, especially if you're wilting them a bit to reduce the water content. You can feed as much of that as you want, because it's not as high in the carbohydrates and things like that that you would have in a concentrate feed. Okay, plus the extra fiber is always good for rabbits, so you can feed as much of those things as you want. But one of the things that is really important when you're feeding your rabbits is fiber, indigestible fiber. So what we usually use here in Trinidad and Tobago, for the most part, I don't know about the other Caribbean islands, but we use a lot of dried coconut husks. Now, it might sound ridiculous, but depending on the part of the world that you're from, a lot of people may not know what a coconut looks like in its natural form. Most people would have seen coconuts in the supermarket or the grocery, and you just see the hard outer shell that you crack, and you get the nut on the inside, which you use to make the coconut milk for cooking and things like that. But that usually comes surrounded by a very dry, fibrous shell, which this is peeled off, and the inner nut is what is usually sold in the groceries and the supermarkets. Okay, but this is really good indigestible fiber for your rabbits. So if you have access to this, definitely always keep some of this on hand, and you can just use a cutlass, and you can cut this into thinner strips and divide it amongst your animals if you don't have a lot of it. But we process a lot of dry coconuts on the farm here, so we always have this in large quantities to feed to our rabbits. Okay guys, so before we wrap things up, I'll just show you a few litters to give you an idea of how things may go with you. If you saw last week's video, I mentioned that no two does are the same. Some does will do a splendid job, some will do a horrible job, especially if it's their first time, but we usually like to give them a second try to get things right before we determine whether or not we're going to keep them. Let me give you an example. This doe here, she made a decent sized litter, and for the most part they are surviving, they're being fed, but you can see the condition of this box, because for some reason she is choosing to urinate and defecate in the box as well. So you're getting a bit of flies buzzing around and things like that. So every day I have to basically remove some of the material from this box. But for the most part the kits are alive, so but you'll see the comparison. Now when we look at this litter here, these two litters were born on the very same day, but this nest box is the complete opposite of what you saw earlier. Right, we do have a bit of sour flies buzzing around, but for the most part you can see how healthy these kits look. Their bellies are round and full with milk, and there's a lot of clean, nice food in here to keep them warm. So I mentioned that in the previous video as well, that their growth is optimized when they're being properly fed and when they're being kept warm. Those two things are the perfect combination for growing kits. Okay, we have another good example here with our one Harlequin doe. Come step back, baby girl. Okay, you can see nice clean box, nice clean fur. The kits look warm and healthy. They're plump. Okay, nice round bellies. Alright. Okay, I'm moving. I'll put them back. I'm not taking them. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the contrast you're gonna see when you're breeding rabbits. Alright, but don't write them off as yet, because a lot of the times they will get it right the second time around. So here's hoping for the best with this girl here. Okay guys, so we're gonna leave it there for today. I hope you guys found this video informative. The information is useful to you. If you did, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Click that like button. Let the algorithm know that you're interested in our content, so they'll bring more links to you. If you think it's informative, please share it with someone else who you think will find it useful. And please, if you're viewing our videos and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead now and hit that subscribe button. Help us get to our goal of 10,000 subscribers. We're just over 6,000. Going for 10,000. That's our aim for 2024. So, guys, thanks for viewing. Thanks for joining us yet again. We appreciate all your support, and we look forward to your continued support in 2024. So, on behalf of my business partner, Sean McLean, Sean Austin, Sean's Rabbit Aquaponic Produce, signing out. See you guys in the next video. Peace.